This matter that we're discussing is the matter of Courtney Love's allegations, which are not known to anyone, really, except a few people who happened upon it when she published it briefly in her wholemusic.com site in 2001. These allegations, which are virtually unknown, you certainly won't find them anywhere on the internet, as far as I can tell, and as far as my original source of these materials has been able to tell, these statements exist nowhere else, other than those who obtained them through email and in the fading memories of those nearly 2 years ago who may have eyeballed them on Courtney's site. In fact, what I'll do now is just read a document that I received a couple of days ago from the person who provided the text of the Courtney Love statements about mutilation of the Kurt Cobain corpse at this facility. This was all to solidify this as something much more than what some of the corporate players involved and the lawyers involved that I've talked to about this in the last couple of months have chosen to describe a rumor, internet rumor. What we have to solidify things is a signed, notarized statement of name omitted for the time being because I didn't ask his authorization to air it. This guy in Massachusetts on witnessing the online Courtney Love statements concerning the Blight's funeral home allegation. This is his signed statement, which arrived this week. I, name omitted, currently residing in Town Omitted, Massachusetts, making this written statement to verify and validate the text materials I recently provided to Seattle journalist Richard Lee. The text materials at issue are about 1,221 words that I sent to Lee that have Courtney Love describing horrific mistreatment of the Kurt Cobain corpse at a funeral home in Seattle. She claims to be uncertain about the exact name, writing, quote, I forget the name. Blythe's Funeral Home, is that it? Blate's Funeral Home? Courtney Love further states, quote, the chain is a $1 billion a year business based in Houston. The Courtney Love online statements cover a variety of areas on this issue, alleging, among other things, that employees at the funeral home videotaped their abuse of the Cobain corpse, that they, quote, cut out his heart, quote, carved the word fag, quote, fag into the body, and, quote, danced with the body as music played. Two names are mentioned as lawyers, quote, Will Smart and, quote, Brian Coluccio. And Courtney Love describes negotiating over damages with the funeral home, along with Cobain's mother, quote, Wendy. I have absolutely no idea if any of the allegations describe anything that actually occurred. This statement is merely to affirm that I personally witnessed the statement, appearing at wholemusic.com now, http, kittyradio.com, Soapbox, the official website that had been maintained for several years as a promotional vehicle for Courtney Love's rock band Hole. The statements appeared in her Soapbox section, where Ms. Love regularly posts statements written by her that are presented as coming directly from her keyboard. For these reasons, it is difficult for me to imagine any circumstances which would result in these statements appearing there and not being the words of Courtney Love. These statements were posted for a short time only in the Soapbox section during the first week of July 2001. They were quickly deleted, apparently because of their controversial nature, within days. Portions of the text messages remained searchable, but they were not accessible as a whole. Almost immediately thereafter, the wholemusic.com site began posting warnings about copying or reproducing statements which were recently found there. I could only see this as being directly related to Courtney Love's statements about the funeral home. I never saw any disclaimer at wholemusic.com about the funeral home statements, and I do not believe that any disclaimer was ever made. By disclaimer, I mean any statement that would have said that the funeral home statements were not by Courtney Love, or that she was retracting some or all of those previous statements. I have been a Nirvana fan since 1991, and I have diligently followed many of the controversies about the band and its relations through websites, chat rooms, and various other media outlets, including radio, television, film, and books. I have very regularly read the wholemusic.com, kittyradio.com sites, where I have been continuously registered as name omitted since month omitted 2001. I have visited the site at least several hundred times. Recently, I saw Richard Lee's critique on the Kurt Cobain journals and thought he should be aware of these statements by Love. I had no contact with Mr. Lee prior to February of 2003 and have only dealt with him through email. I have owned personal computers since 1995. I've been using internet services continuously since 1996 and consider myself fairly expert in the use of these technologies. I provided Lee with both the uncorrected original text as it appeared and my own corrected version, which fixed many spelling and spacing errors for the sake of enhanced readability. However, though I did not highlight and save the text when I originally saw it online, a personal friend whom I have known well for 5 years saved it from the same place, directly from the Soapbox section at wholemusic.com, and forwarded it to me in email. I am an adult of 21 years of age who is competent to make these statements. I sign, swear, and affirm this day before a notary public in town omitted in Massachusetts, this day, April 7, 2003, that the above statements are true and accurate to the best of my knowledge, presented the notary public my official state ID. We're working on getting his friend who actually did highlighting and copying to also do the same, so that should be forthcoming. For those of you who are not wise to the demands here of this type of location, we'll let you know that it's raining, and we've got another 15 to 20 minutes to go. We'll just position the ball cap over the Sony and hope that that's good enough. This doesn't turn into a watery onslaught. Are you getting the picture? That first week of July, curiously enough, one of the busiest times that have occurred for yours truly. I had about a 30-hour per week job at that time. It was also, especially during that first week of July, intensely active in gaining the signatures for the mayoral campaign. Those of you who followed closely know that I garnered 2,500 signatures in July in 1 month. So, boy oh boy, CL could not possibly have picked a time when I was busier to make these brief postings out of the view of the journalist, of course, she most fears getting involved in this sort of delicate affair. Finally, it did come to light a year and a half later, come to light for me. And thanks again to the guy who sent it to me. We'll mention his name once gaining his approval. I sort of overlooked that. We'll give him credit on that in a future edition with his approval. Of course, now you're scratching your heads and asking what this is really all about. Lee says he has statements that are supposed to be by Courtney Love. He has a rather credible witness as to their origins, because the guy was obviously willing to sign and swear and attest to all of this in a legal sense. What is all of this business about carving and cutting Kurt Cobain and all the rest? The quickest and easiest way to go about doing that is to lay it on the line, regardless of the copyright concerns of she who I am convinced is the author of this, Courtney Love Cobain. So here are the approximate 1,221 words that spell a certain amount of doom for those who dared to commit these crimes, or let's just also say she who dared to tolerate the commission of these crimes, since, gee whiz, there's just no evidence whatsoever that this was ever brought to the attention of whom? Of the police, of course. Aren't they supposed to get involved when felonious crimes are committed, or are you just supposed to negotiate for damages, as evidently Courtney and one Wendy O'Connor did when considering their options on getting even or getting compensated, or in some way getting something for the occurrence of these crimes against the body that is the corpse, the cadaver of Kurt Cobain. Here it is, straight from the keyboard next to Courtney's ashtray to that guy in Massachusetts, to my email to you. Quote, they fired the first guy, but they never fired the rest of them. I forget the name. Blythe's Funeral Home, is that it? Blate's Funeral Home? They didn't fire anyone else, they probably all still work there. Will Smart, Houston, Texas, attorney at law, call and say, I'm from Time Magazine and I just found out about the Cobain incident. We're about to bust your chain wide open. I have one question for you, Will. Why did you torture his mother? Why didn't you do the right thing? You saw the evidence, the tapes. Why did you not pay damages to this woman and have the dignity to tell her what they were for? How could you sit in a room going, oh, she's a bitch, wait till I get her on the stand, the Salem witch trial defense, and not have the ethics to take care of the boy's mother? Ask Will this. Wait, tell him, I'm doing an expose on the other case in Tacoma. This was the same chain. They did sort of the same thing with a female congresswoman. They danced with her and they posed her in porno shots. Her name, I think, was Dixie. About your whole chain. No one will trust you when I'm done with you. Why was your boner to get Courtney Love in the stand so you could talk about what a bitch she is, supersede the damages you should have quietly paid Mrs. O'Connor without causing her an image that will haunt her for the rest of her life? Call him someone, lie, and scare the shit out of Will Smart. I am going to the president of your company. I'm taking this Vanity Fair from 6 years ago out about your practice of cremating the wrong people and overcharging for extra fees and all the corruption that's going to make you fired and suck because your witch trial boners superseded any ethics you may have had. You were $1 billion a year company. Will, why didn't you just give his grieving mother a stipend? She didn't need to know why. Maybe Will Smart's boner for this will come back to haunt him. Charge the long distance to me. I can't for the life of me remember the name of the chain. They're the biggest funeral home chain in the U.S. Billions a year. They went and bought every mom and pop funeral home, and they've been in big trouble before, but the fag, was that necessary? The lawyer in this case was a Seattle lawyer named Brian Coluccio. Call Will Smart, that's what you can do for me. Make him scared. He knew it was no sweat to pay damages. Sexist, evil, Courtney bitch boner overrode it. He is going to hell, I hope. Yeah, and we should delete this tonight. It's not the story I want anyone to hear. I was just sad and sick and sad. I'm still sad and sick and sad. He was so shy, she said. I wish I had a Xanax. I don't have one now. I'm really fucking twisted and sad. Okay, here we are. I will tell you more. Some little shit worked at the Seattle coroner's office. He volunteered to accompany the body to the funeral home. When he got there, he dressed the body and had his friends come and videotaped him and his friends dancing with the body. They danced with him. Then one of them cut him. They cut parts of him and they kept them. He somehow got a hold of the suicide note and made t-shirts of them. Then I found out in a really horrible way. Someone had taped this tape of them dancing with his body after they shaved his head. There's I Can't Watch It, girls sitting drinking beer while they play Pearl Jam music and dance with his body broken and bloody. They shaved his head. You want more? This funeral home is part of a chain because Edward went through this with me when his mom died. He found out the funeral home was the same chain. Him and his brother went there and stayed until she was put in the oven and cremated. The chain is $1 billion a year business based in Houston. I decided to quietly and without telling Wendy and Kim sue them for a lot, as it seemed every employee at the home danced with him and cut him. Someone cut out his heart. I was going to take money from these fuckers and just put it in Wendy's account. I know if I publicized this, it would disgrace the poor kid even more. One of the guys carved words into him. The word I heard they carved was fag. Is this great or what? A pack of lawyers come from Houston, and in Seattle there's no emotional damages, just punitive ones. The lawyer says, I will take you on the stand for discovery. I bluff and I say, I will call Newsweek. There was a Vanity Fair article about your insane chain and how corrupt it is. He says, yeah, but I will get you on the stand and make you tell every dirty bad thing you've ever done. I can't have this on the cover of Time, obviously. I say, look, give the mom and sister $1 million and make this go away. He demands to meet them. They don't know. I tell them, soften the stories a little. Kurt's mom walks into the deposition room. She doesn't hear the whole story and still does not know it all. She just finds out about the dancing with him. It was the quietest I've ever seen her be and the saddest thing I have ever heard another say. She starts to weep and she says, after a long pause, my baby was so shy. The whole room starts to cry. Houston lawyer, his name is Will Smart, I'll never forget that name, says, lady, I will give you $250,000 right now. And he stood up very slowly and grabbed my hand and said, I don't want your filthy money, not now and not ever. She leaves the room. That's the tip of sad. What would you have me do? Babe, there's more that's sad up there. There's worse stuff too. I will delete this in a bit, and please respect this and don't copy it. I am really emotional right now because no one knows this outside of the family and Charlie. Of course, Chris, who blamed me somehow because, you know, I'm a bitch. Will Smart, Houston, lawyer. Prank his ass, tell him I sent you. Tell him I am a loose fucking cannon and I have gone crazy with repressed misery. Look him up. William Smart, attorney. They knew I'd never denigrate his memory by taking this to the media. While you're at it, call Dr. Steve Scappa in LA and ask him how he's not suicidal, he just needs to be separated from Courtney and Francis thing works. He is listed too. Go on, you want vengeance for Kurt, get it. That's the conclusion of the section of the Courtney Love rant pertaining to this. And as I counted it some time ago, it comes out to about 1,221 words. For the record, I'll state that I'm the author of that statement. Worked closely with the guy that signed it on making sure that he agreed with each and every aspect of it. 1,221 words is what I counted, which is a whole lot of words in the field of libel, because, you know, so many libel cases depend on the utterance of a single syllable even. And of course, there are those celebrities who are libel-proof. That is, as Courtney Love once admitted on the Howard Stern show several years ago, her lawyers have advised her that she really doesn't have much of a right to go around threatening libel against anyone because she's behaved so outrageously for so many years that any remote connection to fact that a claim against Courtney Love has, like she's a killer or what have you, is likely to stand up in a court of law because, you know, how many times has she said things like it's all her fault or whatever? How many times has, the word killer and murderer appeared in print about her? Let's say Spin Magazine would be one example, a cover story that was done about her. She hasn't sued those people because they also mentioned that she's hanging out with people like Vice President Gore on one occasion. We're not really slamming Gore about that. It's just a bizarre moment in history that Courtney's Hollywood hobnobbing got her that close